The Great Hall of Earth's orbital station had never seen so many alien species gathered in one place. Flags of 12 different civilizations hung from the ceiling. Diplomats from across the galaxy walked between tables filled with food and drinks from 100 worlds. It was supposed to be a celebration of peace, a new age of cooperation between species. But Princess Valara of the Sindari Empire did not come to celebrate. She came to remind everyone of their place. She stood near the center of the hall, surrounded by her guards. Her skin was pale blue, smooth like polished stone. Her eyes were completely black, without any white, and they moved slowly across the room like a predator watching prey. Gold jewelry hung from her pointed ears and wrapped around her long fingers. Her dress was made of fabric that seemed to shift colors with every movement. The Sindari were one of the oldest species in the known galaxy. They had built empires when humans were still living in caves. They had conquered worlds, destroyed civilizations, and shaped the political landscape of 1,000 star systems. To them, every other species was either a servant, a tool, or an insect. Humans were insects. "Tell me," Valara said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "How long have your people traveled among the stars?" The human ambassador, a woman named Choi Unji, kept her face calm. She was in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a neat style. She had spent 30 years in diplomatic service. She knew how to handle insults. "Approximately 400 years, Your Highness," Unji answered. Valara laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the sound someone makes when they find something both funny and pathetic at the same time. 400 years, she repeated. "My family has ruled for 40,000 years. Your entire spacefaring history is less than the age of my grandmother's favorite chair." Some of the alien diplomats nearby smiled nervously. Others looked away, uncomfortable but unwilling to speak against a Sindari princess. The humans in the room stayed quiet, their faces like stone. Valara walked slowly around the hall, her guards following like shadows. She stopped in front of a window that showed human warships floating in formation outside the station. "And these are your military vessels?" She did not hide her amusement. "They look like toys. My personal yacht has more firepower than your entire fleet." This was not true. But nobody corrected her. Lieutenant Bay Yuna stood near the back of the room, wearing her dress uniform. She was 28 years old, with sharp eyes and short black hair. She had been assigned to security for this event, which meant she had to stand still and watch while an alien princess insulted everything her people had built. Her hands formed fists at her sides. She forced herself to relax them. An older officer standing nearby noticed her tension. He leaned closer and whispered, "Easy, Lieutenant. This is what diplomacy looks like. This is what humiliation looks like," Yuna whispered back. The officer said nothing. He could not disagree. Valara continued her performance. She mocked human art as primitive. She called human music noise made by children. She picked up a piece of human food, took a small bite, and then dropped it on the floor like garbage. "I have heard," she said, turning to face the human delegation, "that your species believes itself to be special, that you think your short history contains some kind of greatness." She smiled, showing teeth that were slightly too sharp. "I would very much like to see this greatness. Show me your champion, your greatest warrior. Let me see what humanity considers strength." Ambassador Unji's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. Fear? No. Something else. Something like a memory she did not want to revisit. "Your Highness," Unji said carefully, "we are here to discuss peace and trade. Combat demonstrations are not." "I am not asking," Valara interrupted. "I am telling. The Sindari Empire is considering a trade agreement with your people. Before we sign anything, I want to see what we are dealing with. Surely you have someone worth showing? A general? A famous soldier? Anyone?" The room became very quiet. Yuna noticed something strange. The alien diplomats from other species, the ones who had been smiling at Valara's jokes, were no longer smiling. A group of Kethari officials in the corner had stopped talking completely. They were staring at the human delegation with an expression Yuna could not read. Was it worry? Anticipation? Fear? One of the human officers, a gray-haired man with many medals on his chest, leaned toward Ambassador Unji. He whispered something. Unji shook her head firmly. Valara noticed the exchange. Her black eyes narrowed with interest. "You are hiding something," she said. "I can see it. You have someone. A name you do not want to speak." She stepped closer to Unji, invading her personal space. "Tell me." Unji met her gaze without flinching. "There is no one, Your Highness. We are a peaceful species now. We do not celebrate warriors." Liar. The word hung in the air like a knife. From across the room, the Kethari ambassador suddenly stood up. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His species had fought against humanity. 30 years ago. They had lost. "Perhaps," the Kethari said, his voice shaking slightly, "we should change the subject. The princess has made her point. There is no need to—" "Silence," Valara snapped. "I did not ask for your opinion." The Kethari sat down immediately. Valara turned back to Unji. "You will bring me your champion. I do not care if you have buried him, hidden him, or pretended he does not exist. You will find him, and you will bring him here. Consider it a condition of our trade negotiations." She smiled again, cruel and confident. "I want to see what humanity looks like when it tries to be strong. I expect it will be quite amusing. True. 1. True. 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 True." With that, she turned and walked away, her guards following. The conversation in the room slowly resumed, but the atmosphere had changed. The celebration was over. Yuna watched the princess leave. Her heart was pounding with anger. But beneath the anger, there was something else. Curiosity. She had heard whispers during her years in the military. Stories that officers told after too many drinks. A name that made veterans go quiet. A war that nobody wanted to remember. She found the gray-haired officer who had whispered to Ambassador Unji. "Sir," she said quietly. Who was she asking about? "Who is the champion?" The officer looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were tired, old. "Nobody," he said. "Just a ghost. A story we tell to frighten new recruits." He walked away before she could ask anything else. But Yuna had seen his face when Valara demanded answers. That was not the face of someone talking about a story. That was the face of someone remembering a nightmare. The shuttle descended through thick clouds toward a world called New Busan. It was a farming colony on the edge of human space. Green fields stretched to every horizon. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks white with snow. Rivers cut through valleys like silver ribbons. It was beautiful. It was quiet. It was the last place anyone would look for a legend. Lieutenant Bei Yuna sat in the passenger compartment, reading a file on her datapad. The file was old. Most of it was classified, blocked out with black bars. But what she could read was enough to make her hands shake. Admiral Kim Do-won. Born on Earth, in a city called Seoul. Joined the military at 18. Rose through the ranks faster than anyone in recorded history. Commanded the human fleet during the Kethari Subjugation War. The war where 7 alien species united to enslave humanity. The war humanity won. Yuna scrolled through reports, battle records, and intelligence summaries. The numbers did not make sense. One man had planned the liberation of 12 colony worlds in a single campaign. One man had turned the entire war around when everyone believed humanity would fall. One man had earned a name that made alien species whisper in fear. The Reaper of Andros Station. She did not know what happened at Andros Station. That part of the file was completely black. But she knew the result. After Andros, the 7 species sued for peace. They gave up everything. They retreated so fast that they left equipment and soldiers behind. They ran like prey, fleeing a predator. The shuttle landed in a field near a small farmhouse. Una stepped out into fresh air and sunlight. Birds sang in nearby trees. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. It felt like stepping into a different century, far away from warships and alien princesses. She walked down a dirt path toward the farmhouse. A man was working in a garden nearby, pulling weeds from between rows of vegetables. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and a weathered face. His hands were rough from years of physical work. He wore simple clothes, a plain shirt, worn pants, old boots. He did not look like a legend. He looked like someone's grandfather. "Admiral Kim Do-won?" Una called out. The man did not look up. He continued pulling weeds, slow and methodical. "There is no admiral here," he said. His voice was calm, patient. "Just a farmer. You have the wrong address." Una stopped at the edge of his garden. "Sir, I was sent by Fleet Command. We need your help." "Fleet Command can help itself. I am retired." "Sir, there is a situation. An alien princess is demanding. I know what she is demanding." Do-won finally looked up. His eyes were dark brown, kind but tired. There was something behind them, something hidden, like still water covering a deep current. News travels. Even out here. The Sindari princess wants to see a human warrior. She wants entertainment. She wants humiliation, Una corrected. Same thing, to her kind. Do-won stood up slowly, his knees cracking. He wiped dirt from his hands onto his pants. He looked at Una for a long moment, studying her face, her uniform, the determination in her eyes. "You are young," he said. "Too young to remember the war. I was born after it ended, sir. Lucky." He turned and walked toward his house. "Go home, Lieutenant. Tell them you could not find me. Tell them Kim Do-won is dead. It will not even be a lie." Una followed him. "Sir, I cannot do that. The princess will keep pushing. She will use this as an excuse to break off negotiations. And if she thinks we are weak, we are weak." Do-won stopped at his door. "Do you know why humanity survived the war? Not because we were strong, because we were desperate, because we had nothing left to lose. We did things that no species should ever do." He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "We won. But we did not deserve to." Una felt cold despite the warm sunlight. What happened at Andros Station? The question hung in the air between them. Do-won's face changed. For just a moment, the kind farmer disappeared. Something else looked out through his eyes. Something old and terrible and sad. "Andros Station was a supply hub," he said quietly. "The enemy used it to coordinate their fleet movements. I received intelligence that their command structure would be meeting there. Admirals, generals, strategists, everyone who mattered. So you attacked. I destroyed it. Completely. Every ship, every station, every shuttle, trying to escape." His voice was flat, empty. The intelligence was correct about the commanders, but it did not mention the civilians. Families, children, 30,000 non-combatants who were visiting their military relatives. Una's stomach turned. "You did not know. I suspected. But I attacked anyway." Do-won opened his door and stepped inside. "That is what it takes to win a war, Lieutenant. That is what humanity buried when the fighting stopped. Not a hero, a monster." He started to close the door. Una put her hand against it. "Sir, please. I am not asking you to be proud of what you did. I am asking you to protect what you saved. Those 12 worlds, the billions of people who are alive because of you. The princess does not just want to mock us. She wants to know if we are worth conquering." Do-won paused. "If she thinks we are weak," Una continued, "she will tell her empire. And the Sindari have been looking for new territories. They have been waiting for an excuse. There are other warriors. Younger ones. None with your reputation. None who make aliens go silent when their name is mentioned. Yuna looked into his tired eyes. You scared them so badly that they have not attacked us in 30 years. One appearance. One reminder. That is all we need. Do-wan was quiet for a long time. The sounds of the farm filled the silence. Wind in the trees. Animals in the distance. A peaceful world he had built for himself. Far from blood and fire. If I do this, he said slowly, I am not doing it for pride. Not for glory. Not for revenge. Then why? He looked past her, toward the horizon, toward the stars hidden by daylight. Because someone has to. And I would rather it be me than someone who still has a chance at a normal life. He opened the door wider. Come inside, Lieutenant. Tell me everything about this princess. Yuna felt relief wash through her. But beneath it, she felt something else. Fear. Because she had seen his eyes change. And she understood now why the galaxy whispered his name in the dark. Fleet Admiral Park Jisoo stood at the window of her office, watching Earth turn slowly below. She was 52 years old, with silver streaks in her black hair and sharp lines on her face. She had commanded humanity's military for 8 years. She had made difficult decisions. She had sent people to die. But this decision was different. Behind her, a holographic display showed the face of Princess Valara. The alien was speaking at some kind of press event, surrounded by reporters from a dozen species. The humans have 2 days to present their champion, Valara was saying. If they cannot find anyone worth fighting, we will have our answer about their species. Weak. Cowardly. Not worth the Sindari's time. Jisoo turned off the display. She had seen enough. Her assistant, a young man named Han Taemin, stood near the door. Admiral, the council is waiting for your recommendation. I know. Jisoo did not move from the window. Tell me, Taemin, how old were you during the HFY War? I was not born yet, ma'am. Lucky. She used the same word Do-wan had used. Your generation grew up in peace. You learned about the war in school, dates and numbers and political outcomes. Clean history. Yes, ma'am. The reality was not clean. Jisoo finally turned around. Her eyes were hard. I was 22 when it started. A junior officer on a patrol ship. I watched my captain get burned alive when our shields failed. I spent 3 days floating in a damaged escape pod, listening to my crewmates die one by one from their injuries. Taemin said nothing. He had not known this. Kim Do-wan saved us, Jisoo continued. His fleet arrived just as our oxygen was running out. He personally oversaw our rescue. He held my hand while medics treated my wounds. She paused, remembering. I asked him how we could win against 7 species. How anyone could fight those odds. What did he say? He said the odds do not matter when you have nothing left to lose. He said humanity would win because we could not afford to lose. Jisoo walked to her desk and sat down heavily. He was right. Sighed. All. Jisoo-san. We won. But the cost. Her voice trailed off. Ma'am, should I tell the council you need more time? No. Jisoo straightened in her chair. Tell them I will handle this personally. I am going to New Busan. Artemiting personal. Be Sabris. Taemin looked surprised. The fleet admiral? Traveling to a farming colony? The fleet admiral, asking an old friend for help. Jisoo stood up and reached for her coat. Some requests cannot be made through official channels. The journey to New Busan took 6 hours by fast shuttle. Jisoo spent most of it reading old files and remembering things she had tried to forget. By the time she landed, the sun was setting over the green fields. She found Do-wan exactly where Yuna had found him in his garden, working with the soil. But this time, he looked up when she approached. He even smiled. Jisoo. He used her first name, like they were still young officers. You have more gray hair than I remember. 2. You have less hair than I remember. She smiled back, but it did not reach her eyes. We need to talk. They sat on his porch as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. The sky turned orange, then purple, then dark. Stars began to appear. Somewhere in that sky, alien species were watching and waiting. Lieutenant Bay told me about the situation, Do-won said. She is persistent. Reminds me of you at that age. I sent her on purpose. Jisoo accepted a cup of tea that Do-won offered. I wanted someone who would not give up easily. You knew I would refuse. I knew you would want to refuse. There is a difference. They were quiet for a moment, drinking tea and watching the stars. The council wants me to find someone else. Jisoo finally said. They think bringing you back will make us look weak, desperate. An old man, fighting our battles. They are right. They are wrong. Jisoo set down her cup. The Sindari are not just looking for entertainment. Their empire has been expanding for 2 centuries. They have been testing every species they meet, looking for weakness. Do-won nodded slowly. You think this is a test? I think the princess is reporting everything she sees to her father, the emperor. I think she has already decided that humans are easy prey. I think that if we show her anything less than overwhelming strength, they will start planning an invasion within a year. And you think I am overwhelming strength? I think you are the only human alive who has beaten 7 species at once. I think your name still makes alien admirals check their ships twice before going to sleep. Jisoo leaned forward. I am not asking you to fight, Do-won. Not really. I am asking you to remind them. Just by showing up. Just by standing there. And if they want more than a reminder, then you show them why we buried your legend instead of celebrating it. Do-won looked at his hands. They were rough from farming, gentle from years of peaceful work. But they remembered other things. Weapon controls, combat techniques, the feeling of making decisions that ended thousands of lives. I told your lieutenant that I would rather be the one to go, he said quietly, instead of someone who still has their soul intact. That is not true. You still have your soul. You did not see what I did at Andros. I saw the reports. I know what happened. Jisoo reached out and took his hand. You made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. You carry that weight so that others do not have to. That is not soulless. That is sacrifice. Do-won looked at their joined hands. Old friends. Survivors of a war that had tried to break them both. I have one condition, he said. Name it. If I do this, if I go back there and become the Reaper again, I want your promise that it will be the last time. No more calls. No more requests. Let me die as a farmer, not as a weapon. Jisoo nodded. You have my word. Then I will go. He stood up slowly and looked at the stars one more time. Somewhere up there, a princess was laughing at humanity. Somewhere up there, aliens were whispering about human weakness. They had forgotten what humans could become when pushed too far. Do-won would remind them. The day of the demonstration arrived with ceremony and spectacle. Princess Valara had turned the event into a performance. Cameras from dozens of news networks floated through the air. Diplomats from every major species filled the viewing galleries. Food and drinks were served as if this was a celebration instead of a challenge. Valara sat on a raised platform, surrounded by her guards and advisors. She wore her finest jewelry. Her dress shimmered like liquid metal. She looked like a queen watching gladiators prepare to die for her entertainment. The arena had been constructed in the center of the station's largest hall. It was a circle of polished metal, marked with lines and symbols from Sindari combat traditions. The rules were simple. 2 fighters would enter. They would fight until one surrendered, lost consciousness, or died. Non-lethal weapons were provided. But accidents could happen. Valara did not expect accidents. She expected humiliation. Her champion, Commander Scython, stood at one side of the arena. He was tall even by Sindari standards, nearly 7 feet of lean muscle and blue skin. His black eyes were empty of emotion. He had fought in dozens of these demonstrations across the galaxy. He had never lost. His weapons were elegant, 2 curved blades made of an alloy that could cut through most armor. His movements, as he warmed up, were smooth and precise. Every gesture showed years of training and natural talent. The crowd murmured with appreciation. Even the human observers had to admit that he was impressive. Valara smiled and raised her hand for silence. "People of the galaxy," she announced, her voice amplified throughout the hall. "Today, we test the strength of humanity. I have asked them to present their greatest warrior, their champion, the best they have to offer." She paused for dramatic effect. "Let us see what humanity considers strength." On the opposite side of the arena, a door opened. Kim Do-won walked out. He wore no uniform, no armor. Just simple civilian clothes, a gray shirt, dark pants, worn boots. His gray hair was neatly combed but not styled. He carried no weapons. He looked like he had just come from working in his garden. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Laughter, confused whispers, snickers of disbelief. Valara's smile widened. This is your champion? An old farmer?" Do-won walked calmly to the center of the arena. He did not acknowledge the crowd. He did not look at Valara. He simply stood there, hands at his sides, waiting. "Surely this is a joke," Valara continued. "Where are your young soldiers? Your decorated generals? Did you run out of real warriors?" She expected the human delegation to look embarrassed. She expected them to make excuses. Instead, they were completely silent. Their faces showed nothing. Lieutenant Bei Yuna stood among them, watching carefully. She had traveled back with Do-won on the shuttle. During the journey, he had said almost nothing. He had eaten little, slept less, and spent most of the time staring out the window at passing stars. But something had changed in him. Something subtle. The kind farmer from New Busan was still there, but something else was waking up beneath the surface. Something patient and cold and very, very dangerous. She noticed movement in the crowd. A group of Kethari diplomats was leaving. They moved quickly but quietly, slipping through side doors before anyone could stop them. Their gray faces were pale with something that looked like panic. Other alien species were reacting too. The Vrelian general who had attended every day of negotiations was gripping the railing of his viewing box so hard that his knuckles had turned white. A group of Tholian observers had stopped their constant chattering and were watching Do-won with an intensity that bordered on fear. Yuna looked at Ambassador Choi Unji, who stood nearby. "They know," Yuna whispered. "The other species." "Of course they do," Unji whispered back. "Some of them fought against him. Others heard stories from those who did. The Sindari are the only ones arrogant enough not to learn their history." Valara had noticed nothing. She was too busy enjoying her moment. "Very well," she said, waving her hand. "If this is truly your best, we will proceed. Commander Scython, please try not to kill him too quickly. I want him to feel his inadequacy before he falls." Scython stepped forward, his blades gleaming under the lights. He took a fighting stance, legs spread, weight balanced, weapons raised and ready. Do-won did not move. "Are you going to fight?" Scython asked. His voice was deep and confident. "Or are you going to stand there, like a statue?" Do-won finally looked at him. Really looked. His dark eyes met Scython's black ones, without flinching. "I was just waiting," Do-won said quietly, "trying to decide how much of you to leave intact." Scython laughed. The crowd laughed with him, but some of them, the older aliens, the ones who remembered, did not laugh. They leaned forward in their seats. They held their breath. They knew something terrible was about to happen. "Begin," Valara announced. Scython moved like lightning. His blades cut through the air faster than human eyes could track. He attacked with the speed and precision that had made him champion of a dozen worlds. Dowan was not there. He moved like water around stone. No wasted motion. No dramatic dodges. He simply was not where the blades were cutting. Each attack found empty air. Scython pressed harder, faster. His movements became a blur of steel and fury. Dowan drifted between the strikes like smoke through fingers. He had not attacked once. He had not even raised his hands. The crowd went silent. Valara's smile faded. Scython finally stopped, breathing hard. Confusion had replaced confidence in his black eyes. "What are you?" "What?" Dowan looked at him with something that might have been pity. "I am what your people forgot exists," he said. "I am what happens when you push humanity too far." Then he moved. It was not fast. It was not dramatic. It was just efficient. One step. One strike to the throat. One sweep of the legs. Scython was on the ground before anyone understood what had happened. Dowan's boot pressed against his chest, pinning him down. The commander's blades had fallen from nerveless fingers. 11 seconds. The entire fight had taken 11 seconds. The hall was completely silent. 1,000 beings held their breath, staring at the old farmer standing over the fallen champion. Dowan looked up at Valara. The kindness was gone from his eyes. In its place was something ancient and terrible, the look of a predator who had stopped pretending to be prey. "You wanted to see humanity's warrior," he said. "Now you have." He removed his foot and offered Scython a hand up. The commander took it, too stunned to refuse. Princess Valara sat frozen on her platform, her black eyes wide for the first time since she had arrived at the station. She had come looking for weakness. She had found something else entirely. The silence lasted for what felt like forever. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The cameras continued recording, sending images across the galaxy to billions of viewers who were just as stunned as the people in the hall. Commander Scython stood where Dowan had helped him rise, his hand still extended as if unsure what to do with it. He looked at his fallen blades, then at the old man who had defeated him without drawing a weapon. "How?" Scython finally asked. His voice was quiet, stripped of all pride. "I am the fastest warrior in the Sindari Empire. I have trained since childhood." "How did you—" "Speed is not the same as purpose," Dowan answered. "You were trying to hit me. I was just trying to end the fight. Different goals, different outcomes." Scython considered this for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lowered his head in a gesture of respect. It was not required. It was not expected. It was simply the truth. "I was honored to face you," Scython said. Dowan nodded. "You are skilled. Do not let this loss define you." From her platform, Princess Valara finally found her voice. "This proves nothing." Her words were sharp, defensive. One fight against one warrior. My guard was overconfident. He underestimated nothing. The voice came from the Vrelian general, who had stood up in his viewing box. His gray skin was pale, his forearms trembling slightly. "I know who this man is. I fought against him 30 years ago. I watched him destroy 3 of my battleships in 11 minutes. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Commander Scython is young," the general continued. "He does not know the stories. But I do. I know what stands in that arena." He looked directly at Valara, and there was no submission in his eyes, only warning. "You have woken something that should have been left sleeping, Princess." Valara's black eyes narrowed. "You speak boldly for a conquered species. I speak truthfully for a species that learned its lesson." The general did not look away. "We tried to enslave humanity. 7 species working together, with fleets that numbered in the thousands. We should have won. We had every advantage. And yet you lost. We did not just lose. We were broken." The general pointed at Dowan, who stood quietly in the arena, watching and listening. That man did things that we still do not speak of. Strategies that violated every rule of warfare. Attacks that came from impossible angles. We thought we understood war. He showed us that we understood nothing. More aliens were speaking now. A Tholian diplomat called out from across the hall. We lost 60% of our military capacity in a single year. Our home system was raided twice. We had to beg for peace terms. A Kethari advisor who had stayed, unlike his fleeing colleagues, added his voice. Our children still learn about Andros Station. We call it the Day of Silence. An entire command structure. Gone in hours. The war ended because we were too afraid to continue. Dowan closed his eyes briefly, as if the memories were physical weights pressing down on him. Valara stood up from her seat, her composure cracking for the first time. These are stories. Exaggerations from defeated enemies trying to excuse their failure. Then test it, Dowan said. Everyone turned to look at him. You want proof? He stepped forward, his voice calm and cold. Send more warriors. Send your 5 best. Send 20. I will face them all. One by one, or all at once. I will show you exactly what humanity can do when we stop being polite. The offer hung in the air like a challenge, and a threat rolled into one. Valara looked at her guards. They were elite soldiers, trained from birth, armed with the finest weapons the Sindari Empire could provide. Any one of them should have been able to defeat an old farmer easily, but none of them would meet her eyes. None of them stepped forward. Your guards are smarter than you, Dowan said. They have been watching. They have been calculating. And they have realized that this demonstration would not go the way you want. He walked toward the edge of the arena, passing within arm's reach of Sindari soldiers who flinched away from him. I am going to give you some free advice, Princess, he continued. Go home. Tell your father that humanity is not worth conquering. Tell him that we are poor. Our space is small, and there is nothing here worth dying for. He stopped at the arena's boundary and turned back to face her. Because if your empire comes here looking for war, you will find one. And we have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We are very, very good at it. Better than any species you have ever encountered. Better than any species you can imagine. Number 4. Number 4. Number 4's. Number 4. Number 4. Number 4. His eyes met hers across the distance. You came here to mock us, to make us feel small. But you have made a mistake that every enemy of humanity has made. You looked at our short history and saw weakness. You looked at our fragile bodies and saw prey. He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. But history does not measure danger. And fragile things learn to be clever, to be vicious, to survive against all odds. We are the species that hunted predators to extinction. We are the species that conquered our own planet before we ever reached for the stars. We are the species that looked at 7 alien armadas and said, no. The smile faded, replaced by something harder. So make your choice, Princess. Be our friend, and you will find us generous and loyal and kind. Be our enemy, and you will find out why the galaxy whispers our name in the dark. He turned and walked toward the exit, passing the silent crowd, passing the frozen guards, passing Lieutenant Bayuna, who was staring at him with wide eyes. He paused beside her. Come, Lieutenant, he said quietly. I think our demonstration is complete. She followed him out of the hall. Behind them, Princess Valara stood alone on her platform, surrounded by the wreckage of her assumptions about humanity. For the first time in her long life, she did not know what to say. The observation deck was empty, except for the stars. Millions of them, scattered across the black canvas of space like diamonds thrown by a careless god. Dowan sat alone near the window. His reflection, a ghost, against the infinite darkness. The demonstration had ended hours ago. The crowds had dispersed. The news networks were broadcasting their footage across the galaxy, analyzing and debating and speculating. The name Kim Do-won was being spoken again, After 30 years of deliberate silence, he had hoped never to hear it again. Lieutenant Bei Yuna found him there. She approached quietly and stood beside him, looking out at the same stars. The Keth Ari delegation left the station immediately after the fight, she reported. The Vrelian general sent a message to his government recommending immediate diplomatic outreach to humanity. 3 other species have requested emergency meetings with our ambassadors. Good. Dowan's voice was flat. Then it worked. The princess has not left her quarters. Her advisors have been trying to reach her, but she is refusing all visitors. Yuna paused. They say she has been watching the footage of the fight, over and over. She is trying to understand what went wrong with her assumptions. She will need time. They were quiet for a moment. The stars continued their silent burning. Sir, Yuna finally said, may I ask you something? All. You want to know about Andros Station. It was not a question. Dowan had seen the curiosity in her eyes since New Busan. She was too disciplined to ask directly, but she was burning to know. Everyone always was. You do not have to tell me, she said quickly. I know it is classified. I know it is painful. But I have read the public records, and they do not make sense. The war was going badly. We were losing on every front. And then suddenly, everything changed. 1 battle, and 7 species surrendered. Not 1 battle, 1 massacre. Yuna said nothing, waiting. Dowan turned away from the stars and looked at her. His eyes were tired, old, heavy with memories that would never fade. Our intelligence discovered that the enemy command structure was meeting at Andros Station, he began. Admirals, generals, war planners, everyone who mattered. If we could eliminate them all at once, the enemy alliance would fall apart. Each species would retreat to defend their own territory. So you attacked. I planned the attack for 2 weeks. Every detail, every angle, every ship position. He looked down at his hands. My officers raised concerns. They said the intelligence was incomplete. They said there might be civilians on the station. I told them that the target was too important. I told them that we could not afford to hesitate. His voice became quieter, rougher. The attack was perfect. 37 ships, coordinated to arrive simultaneously from multiple directions. We destroyed their defense fleet in the first 10 minutes. The station's shields fell shortly after. He paused. We were supposed to board the station and capture the commanders alive. That was the plan. What happened? I changed the plan. The words came out heavy as stones. I looked at that station, filled with the people who had killed millions of humans, who had burned our colonies and enslaved our people. And I decided that capturing them was too risky, too slow, too uncertain. He finally met Yuna's eyes. I ordered the station destroyed. Complete annihilation. Every ship, every shuttle, every escape pod. His voice cracked slightly. Including the ones carrying families. Children, 30,000 civilians who had come to visit their military relatives and never even knew they were in a war zone. Yuna felt cold spreading through her chest. You could not have known. I knew. The admission was brutal in its honesty. Not for certain. But I suspected. The intelligence reports mentioned unusual population numbers, more life signs than a military station should have. I chose to ignore the discrepancy because the target was too important. He stood up and walked closer to the window, pressing one hand against the cold glass. The war ended within a month. The enemy alliance collapsed exactly as I predicted. We won. He laughed bitterly. Humanity celebrated. There were parades, medals. Politicians gave speeches about our great victory. And you? I resigned the next day. I took everything, every medal, every honor, every record of what I had done, and I burned it. Then I bought a farm on the most remote colony I could find, and I tried to become someone else. Someone who had not murdered 30,000 innocent people for a strategic advantage. Yuna was quiet for a long time, processing what she had heard. The hero of humanity, the savior of 12 worlds, the legend that made aliens tremble, a man who carried 30,000 ghosts wherever he went. "Sir," she finally said, "does it ever get easier, carrying that weight?" "No." He did not hesitate. "It gets heavier every year. I remember their faces now, faces I never actually saw. My mind creates them for me. Children who will never grow up, parents who will never see their families again. All because of a decision I made in 11 seconds. You saved billions of human lives. I did. And I ended 30,000 others. There is no math that makes that equation balance. There is no calculation that makes it right." He turned back to face her. "That is why I told you the truth, Lieutenant. So that you understand what it really costs to be a legend. It is not glory. It is not honor. It is carrying the dead with you for the rest of your life." Yuna thought about everything she had seen. The demonstration, the fear in alien eyes, the way Dowan had moved, efficient and deadly, like a machine built for ending lives. And then she thought about the farmer on New Busan, the gentle hands in the soil, the kind eyes and the quiet smile. "You have spent 30 years trying to atone," she said slowly. "Growing things instead of destroying them. Helping your neighbors instead of commanding fleets. That is not nothing, sir. That is not the action of a monster. Monsters can pretend to be human. It does not change what they are." "No." Yuna stepped closer, her voice firm. "I have read about monsters, real ones, people who killed without regret, who enjoyed the suffering of others, who never lost a moment of sleep over their choices. You are not that. You made a terrible decision in an impossible situation, and you have been punishing yourself for it ever since." She reached out and touched his arm, a gesture that would have been inappropriate under normal circumstances, but felt right in this moment. "That is not a monster, sir. That is a human being who carries the full weight of his choices. And I think that is the hardest thing anyone can do." Dowan looked at her hand on his arm. Something shifted in his eyes. Not forgiveness that would never come, but perhaps something smaller. Acknowledgement. Understanding. "You are wise for your age, Lieutenant. I had good teachers." She smiled slightly. "Including the ones who taught me that true strength is not winning fights. It is surviving the aftermath." She smiled. "Also Fortu." He smiled back, just a little. The first real smile she had seen from him since they met. "Maybe you are right," he said. "Maybe carrying the weight is its own kind of strength." They stood together in the observation deck, watching the stars, sharing the silence of people who understood each other's burdens. Outside, the galaxy continued turning. Wars waited to be fought. Decisions waited to be made. But for this moment, there was only the quiet company of two soldiers who knew the true cost of victory. The request came the next morning, delivered through official diplomatic channels. Princess Valara of the Sindari Empire wished to speak with Kim Do-won, privately, without guards, without witnesses, without recording devices. The human delegation was suspicious. Fleet Admiral Park Jisoo wanted to refuse. Ambassador Choi Eun-ji suggested alternatives, a public meeting, a recorded conversation, anything with oversight. Do-won accepted the request without hesitation. "She has spent the night watching me defeat her champion over and over," he explained. "She has questions, the kind that cannot be asked in front of an audience." "And if it is a trap?" Jisoo asked. "Then you will have confirmation that the Sindari cannot be trusted. Either way, you win." He went alone. The meeting room was small and simple. A table, 2 chairs, a window showing the stars. Valara was already there when he arrived. She looked different from the arrogant princess who had mocked humanity at the reception. Her jewelry was gone. Her elaborate dress had been replaced by simple robes. Her black eyes, for the first time, held something other than contempt. They held confusion. And perhaps a little fear. "Please sit," she said. Her voice was quiet, without its usual sharp edges. Doan sat across from her. He waited. This was her meeting. For a long moment, Valara said nothing. She simply looked at him, studying his face, searching for something. "I have been watching the footage," she finally said. "The fight. Over and over. 117 times. That is a lot of times. I needed to understand." She leaned forward slightly. "Commander Scython is the finest warrior in my empire. He has trained since childhood. He has mastered 12 combat styles. He has killed enemies faster and stronger than any human. And yet you defeated him in 11 seconds, without weapons, without effort, without even seeming to try." Her voice cracked slightly. "How?" "I have watched every movement. I have analyzed every angle. I still do not understand." Doan considered his answer carefully. "When Scython attacked me, he was thinking about technique, about form, about the correct way to move a blade through space." He paused. "When I faced him, I was thinking about nothing. I was simply reacting, flowing, existing in the moment without thought or hesitation. That does not explain." "Your people have been powerful for 40,000 years," Doan interrupted gently. "You have conquered species, built empires, dominated entire regions of space. Comfortable. You fight for sport, for honor, for entertainment." He met her eyes directly. "Humans do not fight for sport. We fight to survive. Every war in our history was a war of extinction, against nature, against disease, against each other, against aliens who wanted to enslave us. We learned that combat is not a game. It is not an art form. It is simply the fastest path between a threat and its elimination." Valara processed this slowly. "You are saying, my people have become soft. I am saying your people have forgotten what true desperation looks like. You have never had to be the underdog. You have never faced an enemy who could actually destroy you." He leaned back in his chair. "Humanity has faced that enemy many times. We are still here because we learned to fight without rules, without honor, without hesitation." The princess was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, a cargo ship drifted past, carrying goods between worlds that had once been enemies. "I came to this station to mock you," she finally said. "To demonstrate human weakness to the galaxy. To justify my father's plans." "What plans?" "Expansion." The word came out flat. "Truthful. The Sindari Empire has been searching for new territories, new resources, new species to incorporate into our systems. Your region of space was considered ripe." Doan nodded slowly. He had suspected as much. "And now?" Valara's black eyes met his. "Now I understand why no one has tried to conquer humanity in 30 years. And I understand why the species who did try are still frightened of a single old man in civilian clothes." She stood up and walked to the window, her reflection ghostly against the stars. "My father will be disappointed. He expected me to return with confirmation that humans are weak, disorganized, easy targets." She paused. "Instead, I will tell him the truth. That humanity produces warriors who can defeat our champions without effort. That your species fights with a desperation we have never known. That attacking you would cost more than any possible gain." End quote. "You think he will listen? He will not have a choice." She turned back to face him. "I am his heir. My word carries weight. And I have seen what I have seen." Doan stood up, preparing to leave. But Valara raised a hand to stop him. "One more question," she said. "In the arena, when you defeated Scython, you offered him your hand. You helped him rise. Why? He was your enemy. You had humiliated him in front of the entire galaxy. He was not my enemy. He was a soldier, following orders, just like I was. Once, Dowan moved toward the door, then paused. Victory does not require cruelty, princess. The best wars are the ones that end with both sides able to face each other again. I showed your people strength, but I also showed them respect. That is how you turn enemies into allies. Valara considered this. You are not what I expected. Most legends never are. He opened the door. Safe travels, princess. I hope we never meet again, under these circumstances. As do I. She hesitated, then added, The galaxy whispers your name. Admiral. They call you the Reaper. He looked back at her, and for a moment, his eyes held infinite sadness. I know, but I prefer Farmer. He left without another word. 6 months later, Lieutenant Bei Yuna, now Commander Yuna, traveled to New Busan. She found Dowan, where she expected to find him. In his garden, his hands in the soil, surrounded by growing things. The Sindari signed a full trade agreement, she told him. Complete diplomatic recognition, cultural exchange programs, military non-aggression pacts. It is the most comprehensive treaty in human history. Good. He did not look up from his work. They are teaching your tactics at the academy again, she added. The demonstration became part of the curriculum. Required viewing for all officers. This made him pause. I asked them not to do that. I know. But some lessons are too important to bury. Dowan finally stood up, brushing dirt from his knees. He looked older than he had 6 months ago, but also somehow more at peace. Do you know why I did not want them teaching my tactics? He asked. Because of what they cost you to learn. No. He smiled. And it was a real smile, touched with warmth. Because I want the next generation to find better answers than I did. Humanity's greatest strength is not our warriors. It is our ability to grow into something better. Yuna watched him return to his garden, the deadliest human alive, on his knees in the dirt, nurturing new life from dark soil. Maybe that is the real legend, she said softly. He looked up at her, the kindness fully restored to his eyes. Maybe. Above them, the stars continued their ancient dance. Somewhere out there, alien species whispered the name of a human reaper. They told stories of impossible victories and terrible power. They warned their children about what happened when you pushed humanity too far. But on a quiet farm, on a peaceful world, an old man simply grew his vegetables and watched the sunset. The war was over. The legend could rest. And humanity, as always, continued reaching toward tomorrow.